Welcome to our online CRE lessons. I'm teacher Robert Mogita from Kisii School. We are having our online lessons. Please, I will encourage students to subscribe and view these lessons, listen to these lessons. If you have any query to ask, you can ask us through my number is given. You can call, you can engage us in any discussion that you think you are not understanding. So that you are able to understand. We are to continue with our Form 2 lesson on the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. We cleared some parts of it. We discussed Isaiah's prophecies, Nathan's prophecies. Again, we discussed that. But the last parts of Isaiah is what we'll pick from. And we said that if you ask to explain how these prophecies find their fulfillment in the New Testament, that is in Jesus, you first please understand half the prophecies themselves, then fulfill them in Jesus, what the prophet says, and how that is fulfilled in Jesus. Then you earn your mark. We want to go through Isaiah's prophecies about the Messiah according to Isaiah 61, 1 and 2. This is very specific. What is Isaiah saying about the Messiah in Isaiah chapter 61 verse 1 and 2, and this is what is we have always said that is alluded in Luke chapter 4, the rejection of Jesus at Nazareth 16 to 30. One, he would bring good news to the poor. That 61 records this. It's a contextual thing. He will bring good news to the poor. He will heal the broken-hearted, those whose hearts have been broken. The Messiah was coming to heal them, their hearts. He would liberate the captives and offer freedom to those who are in prison. Those who are in prison, any prison of sin, those captives of sin. Jesus was, the Messiah was coming to liberate them from that prison. He would proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. The year of the Lord is coming. Sometimes people say the year of Jubilee, such that it's the year of the Lord when we will see great things happening to these people. That's when the Messiah was coming. He would bring this year of the Lord. It would be fulfilled. The people would be. He would be filled with the Holy Spirit, with the Spirit of God. That is to mean that the Messiah would have the Spirit of God in him. He would comfort those who mourn. Those who are mourning, the Messiah would comfort them. And that is Isaiah's prophecies. You can be asked outline Isaiah's prophecies according to Isaiah chapter 61 verse 1 and 2. We have the suffering servant, which is found in Isaiah chapter 53. Then we have general Isaiah. So it is important that you understand all these prophecies about the Messiah according to Isaiah in those different categories. My students want to move to Jeremiah's prophecies about the Messiah. And again, the text here is given, Jeremiah 23, 5 and 6. These two verses gives us the whole details of what Jeremiah prophesies about the Messiah who is to come. The Messiah would come from the house of David. So he will be a descendant of King David. That's what we have said several times in most of the prophecies. They have this prophecy that the Messiah would come from the house of David too. He would be righteous. This Messiah would be righteous. Unlike other messiahs and like other people, this Messiah would be a righteous Messiah. He would reign as king. When he will come, the Messiah would reign as king. Because what I want to remind you is that Isaiah chapter 61 is fulfilled in Jesus, and you can pick those points and fulfill them in Jesus, and you will see how he comforted those who are mourning, how he pronounced the acceptable year of the Lord. Let us go back to Jeremiah. He'll reign as a king. When when the Messiah would come, it will be establish a kingdom where he will be a king. The Messiah would rule wisely. The Messiah would be a wise ruler. That is why when there's a problem, he will use wisdom to handle it. He would execute justice and righteousness in the land. Unlike other messiahs, the Messiah will be a righteous Messiah who will execute justice in the land. He will bring salvation upon Judah. He will bring salvation in the land of Israel. He will save people from their sins. He will provide security, safety in Israel. Israel will be secure because Israel had a problem with their enemies, so there will be safety in Israel when the Messiah will come. He will be called the Lord our righteousness. This is the name the Messiah will have. What we want to see now from these prophecies, my students, please series of social science needing social memory. Please remember these points. And now the next part will be, how did Jesus fulfill Jeremiah's prophecies about the Messiah? You fulfill these prophecies in Jesus. The question is, explain how Jesus fulfilled the prophecies of Jeremiah about the Messiah. You must remember the prophecies themselves. Like, for example, Jeremiah prophesied that the Messiah would come from David's lineage. This is the prophecy itself, the house of David. Jesus was indeed a descendant of King David. Because Jesus came from that lineage, he came from that ancestry. So Jesus was indeed a descendant of King David. The prophecies, Jesus coming from David's lineage. Number two, Jeremiah prophesied that the Messiah would rule wisely. And the prophecy that Messiah, Jeremiah, is putting forward. But how is it fulfilled in Jesus? Jesus taught people with wisdom and authority. Jesus was full of wisdom, was full of authority, and this prophecy is now fulfilled in Jesus that way. Jeremiah prophesied that the Messiah would execute justice and righteousness. It would be a righteous Messiah. So Jesus' ministry was full of justice and holiness. Jesus was a just king. He was holy. So that is what Jesus is fulfilling. Jeremiah prophesied the Lord will be called, the Messiah will be called, the Lord is our righteousness. So the demon-possessed man in the synagogue at Nazareth identified Jesus as the Holy One of God. So Jesus is fulfilling this because the demon-possessed man is confessing that Jesus indeed is the Holy One. Because Jeremiah prophesied that Jesus will be called the Lord is our righteousness. So he's a Holy One, the Holy One of God. Jeremiah prophesied that the Messiah would ensure that Judah is safe from our enemies. So, but Jesus exorcised demons and freed people from various infirmities. So the enemies of the people, Jesus tried to liberate people from their enemies. He exorcised demons who are enemies of the people, who are putting them down, freed people from infirmities. These were the different enemies of the people that Jesus fulfilled. Jeremiah prophesied that the Messiah would be king. So Jeremiah said that the Messiah would reign as king. So how does Jesus fulfill this? Jesus established God's kingdom where he reigned as a king. So Jesus established God's kingdom whereby in this kingdom Jesus was the king. We move to the next prophet, who is the psalmist. We say the psalmist because the writer of the book of Psalms, not very clear who. We can't say David, so we just say the psalmist prophecies. We could say easily the David's prophecy about the Messiah, but the book of Psalms is anonymous. So we're saying, what is the psalmist saying? What are the prophets of the psalmist about the Messiah? Psalms chapter 41 verse 9, and the same Psalms chapter 110 verse 1 and 2. And the idea we're getting here, the Messiah will be betrayed by a close friend. So in here, the Messiah will be betrayed by a close friend. And here, we will see that how it is fulfilled in Jesus. Who is this close friend? And Jesus indeed was betrayed by a close friend. The Messiah would use God's authority and strength to rule Israel. So the Messiah was coming, according to the psalmist, would use God's authority and strength to rule Israel. The Messiah would be a victorious king, would conquer. The Messiah was coming, was going to be very strong, he would conquer, he would be victorious. He would liberate Israel, the Israelites, from their enemies. So the Messiah was going to liberate the Israelites from their enemies. Another point, another prophecy is that he would be exalted and sit at the right hand of God. So the Messiah will sit and be exalted at the right hand of God. He will sit at the right hand of God. He will rule from Zion. These are the prophecies that the psalmist is putting forward about the Messiah who is coming. These are the prophecies that we want to see now. How is Jesus fulfilling this? The psalmist, the same question. Explain. When we are saying about the prophecies themselves, the question will be, outline Jeremiah's prophecies about the Messiah. Outline the psalmist's prophecies about the Messiah. Outline Isaiah's prophecies about the Messiah. But when we come to the fulfillment, we say, explain how Jesus fulfilled the psalmist's prophecies about the Messiah. How does Jesus fulfill what the psalmist is saying about the Messiah? How is Jesus becoming the Messiah according to the psalmist? The psalmist prophesied that the Messiah would be betrayed by a close friend. That's what the Messiah is saying. So how is this fulfilling Jesus? Jesus indeed was betrayed by a close friend who's Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples. The psalmist prophesied the Messiah would use God's authority and strength to rule his people. And Jesus used God's power and authority. God gave Jesus power and authority. The psalmist prophesied that the Messiah would be a victorious king who would conquer and liberate the Israelites from their enemies. So Jesus conquered the power of the devil and liberated people from their sins. So this is how Jesus is fulfilling the psalmist prophecies. Another way, the psalmist prophet the Messiah will be exalted and sit at the right hand of God after his resurrection. Jesus ascended to heaven and sat at the right hand of God. So from this, we are able to tell that Jesus is the Messiah predicted by the psalmist. We want to move to the last prophet, the last prophet who is predicting about the Messiah. And this MICAH'S, we have MICAH'S prophecies about the Messiah. How, what does Micah say about the Messiah? One, the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. If you read Micah chapter 5, verse 2 to 5, you will discover that the context in this text, the Messiah is said to be, is going to be born in Bethlehem. The second, rule over Israel. He will be the ruler over Israel. The Bible records that his origin is from the ancient days of the old days. So his origin is from the old days, ancient days. He was there, so he will be there. He would be born of a virgin woman. Here, this way we are having Jeremiah saying that he will be born of a woman. Micah said he will be born of a virgin woman. And then a young woman that you in travel, virgin woman, but just say he will be born of a woman. He will be born of a woman. It is more appropriate, born of a woman, because Isaiah is the one who is now saying that he will be born of a virgin woman. But here, let us say just he will be born of a woman, because the Bible, I think, records and says she that who is in travel. So let us say born of a woman. He will feed his flock. So he is the one who will be feeding the flock. He will be like a shepherd. He would rule in the majesties of power of God. He will have the power of God to rule. In his time, Israel will be secure. So there will be peace in Israel. Israel will be safe. He shall be great to the ends of the earth. He shall be great to the ends of the earth. So his greatness will still continue. Then we are saying that Israel would have victory over our enemy and there would be peace in Israel. During his time, Israel will be victorious. We want to move. How is Jesus fulfilling Micah's prophecies about the Messiah? The Messiah's, Micah says that the Messiah will be born of a woman. Please, it's not a virgin woman, but a woman. Take that from Micah's prophecy. He will be born of a woman. It's not a virgin woman. A virgin woman is Isaiah. The prophet that the Messiah will be born of a woman. Jesus indeed was born of a virgin woman. That's Mary. He was born of a woman. That's Mary. Micah prophesied that the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem. And then Jesus indeed was born in Bethlehem, the city of David. Micah prophesied that the Messiah would rule in the power of God. Jesus taught with authority and the strength of God. Micah prophesied that the Messiah would restore peace in Israel. He would bring peace in Israel. Jesus was a peaceful Messiah who established a peaceful dynasty. That is even when the way he is entering Jerusalem. Is a peaceful Messiah. Micah prophesied that the Messiah shall be great to the ends of the earth. Up to now, Jesus' power and strength is universal. The end of the world is all over. It's universal. His influence is universal. Micah prophesied the Messiah will feed his flock. Jesus fed the hungry. Fed the flock. Those who were hungry came to Jesus and they were fed. Micah prophesied the Messiah would be of ancient times, the olden days. Jesus was born from the beginning, a descendant of David. So he was there from the olden days. We want to look at how Jesus, the Jewish expectations about the Messiah. You will have a look. We have the concept of the Messiah in the New Testament. You will see, I've just avoided to do the concept of the Messiah in the New Testament because it's the fulfillment of those messianic prophecies in the Old Testament. The concept of the Messiah in the New Testament is an interpretation of the Old Testament prophets about the by the New Testament writers about the coming of the Messiah. So in the New Testament, the word Christ is used interchangeably with the Hebrew term Messiah, where the reference is meant to reveal and prove that Jesus was indeed the much-awaited Messiah. So in the New Testament, the word Christ also simply means the Messiah. So in the New Testament, if you go through some of the Old Testament prophets about the Messiah that get fulfillment in the New Testament, I want us to avoid this because we have gone through the Old Testament prophecies with their specific prophets, Jeremiah, Micah, Isaiah, the psalmist, Nathan, and we have seen all these prophecies, how they're saying and how they're getting fulfillment in Jesus. So all these are repeat. He will be born of a young woman, be called the anointed one, will be rejected, betrayed by a close friend, will be born of a virgin, according to Isaiah. All these prophecies have their fulfillment in the New Testament. And we want now to look at the Jewish expectations about the Messiah. What were the Jewish people expecting about a Messiah who was coming? Again, this question has been tested. The national exam, it is asked, outline the Jewish expectations about the Messiah. What were the Jewish people expecting about the Messiah who was coming? They expect a Messiah to come from the lineage of David, the royal descent, a rich family. They expect a Messiah who was coming from a rich family. Second, they expected the Messiah to come after the return of Elijah. They expected a prophet. They expected Prophet Elijah. After the departure of Elijah, they expected another Elijah to come. So the Messiah was coming, who was an Elijah reincarnated. The Jews expected the Messiah to be a political leader, one who would overthrow the Roman rulers. They expected a Messiah was coming to be their political savior, to remove them from the political bondage which they were in. The Messiah would convert Jerusalem to be the center of rule, political center. They expected that Jerusalem would be a political center, and so that the Roman authorities do not exploit them. They expected that also that the Messiah would not associate with the poor, sinners, the Gentiles. They expected a Jew who could not associate with the others to become the Messiah. The Messiah was expected to make Judaism a superior religion. The religion of the Jewish people was Judaism. So they expected a Messiah who would observe Judaism and make it a superior religion over others. They didn't expect a Messiah who would come and become Christ and establish a Christian religion. No. They expected Judaism to continue, following the Mosaic laws. The Jews expected a Messiah who would perform miracles. They expected a Messiah who would come, perform miracles. They expected that he could come from heaven in a miraculous way. They expected the establishment of Messiah to be, preceded by cosmic signs, mysteries. They expected that they would see some signs, mysterious signs from heaven when the Messiah is coming, which did not happen, of course. They expected the Messiah to establish the kingdom by conquering the enemies of Israel. So they expected the Roman Empire to be conquered, the enemies of Israel to be conquered. So the establishment of this kingdom would be by conquering the enemies of Israel. The Messiah was to rule the whole world. The expected Messiah was to rule the whole world. We want to look at how Jesus contradicted these beliefs of the Jewish expectation about the Messiah. How did he contradict? The Jews expected this to happen, but it didn't happen the way they expected. The Jews expected the Messiah to come from, to be born from a royal family. But Jesus came from a humble family. So this is a contradiction, that they expected that Jesus would be born from a rich family, a royal family. But Jesus is being born from a very poor family. Joseph, poor family. They expected a political Messiah who would overthrow the Roman rulers. But Jesus was a spiritual leader. They expected that the Messiah would be political. But Jesus, when he came, he was a spiritual leader and never a political leader. They expected a Messiah who would rule the whole world. From Jerusalem, they thought that Jesus would establish a political center in Jerusalem and receive homage from all the nations who would come to Jerusalem for pilgrimage. But Jesus' rule was universal. It was everywhere. He was not ruling from a specific point. No. They expected a Messiah who would establish an earthly kingdom. They expected a Messiah would have an earthly kingdom where he would appoint some prime ministers and also appoint people to be in charge of different states. But Jesus came to establish a heavenly kingdom. He didn't establish earthly kingdom. They expect a Messiah who would not associate with the poor. But you see, Jesus contradicted this, but because he freely mixed with the poor, the sinners and the Gentiles. And these are the questions that people were asking, why are you mixing freely with these people? They expect a Messiah would uphold Judaism, the religion of the Jews. But Jesus healed on the Sabbath day. So it did not, the Mosaic law did not allow Jesus to do any work on the Sabbath day. But Jesus contradicted that by healing on the Sabbath day, and his disciples did not fast. They expect a Messiah who would be for the Jews only. But Jesus' mission was universal. They expect that the Messiah was coming was to be for the Jews. Only for the Jewish people. Only. But Jesus' mission was for everybody. My FOP 2 students, be on the lookout for these lessons. Today we have now completed the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. These are question 1, paper 2 question. Testing the Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah. And the infants narratives, Luke chapter 1 and 2. We'll continue with Luke chapter 1 and 2 so that we can complete our question 1, paper 2 question. So I encourage you, even when you are at home, please interact with our content. Read this CRE. There are notes here. You can write them, pause and write these notes. Listen to my explanation. If there's any way you don't understand, call me for explanations. Memorize this content, apply this content, and everything will be okay. When we meet physically in our classes, you will have not lost anything. We are making sure that we are revising with you this content. We will go ahead and cover what you have not covered. Please listen to this content and things will be okay for you. Thank you and have a good day. May God bless you and protect you and keep you safe.